So then we have the Ordeal. This is the big, dangerous, physical test or deep inner crisis that the hero must face. This is the dragon, for example, like in mythical stories. This is the big thing that they've been prepared for. This is the monster in the cave that they must face in order to survive, or for the world that the hero lives in to continue to exist. Whether it's facing their greatest fear or their most deadly foes, they have to draw upon all the skills and experiences they gathered in the last couple of points in the story to face this ordeal. And usually the ordeal is like the midway point of the story. It's usually like the actual like halfway point. It's the top of the arc. It's the biggest foe that they have to face or whatever. It's, you know, it is the thing that kind of, all the doubts and fears and the problems they had at the very beginning, the thing that prevented them from starting the quest, this obstacle tests that resolve. They have to decide whether they are fully committed in crossing over that final thing. They decided to go in the cave, but do they actually have the metal to face the dragon? Now in Lord of the Ring, the supreme ordeal is whether or not Frodo will achieve his goal of reaching Mount Doom to destroy the ring, and whether or not the prowess of the Fellowship and their allies will be able to defeat the forces of Sauron. Essentially, the ordeal, the overall goal is, can Frodo get to Mount Doom and destroy the ring? And can the Fellowship actually defeat the armies of Sauron? Let's see, with Harry Potter, Harry, Ron, and Hermione have to overcome a bunch of obstacles that protect the Philosopher's Stone. There's the Cerberus, there's the weird key things or whatever, there's the live stage chess thing. There's all those obstacles they have to overcome to actually get to the Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone. With the Matrix, Neo's group is actually ambushed by the agents of the Matrix. Those are the ultimate like bad guy for the movie. They've been training, and now they have to face up against this elite. With Spider-Man, Norman figures out that Peter is Spider-Man, and he kidnaps Mary Jane. Norman is the big bad. He comes in, and now the ordeal is he's taken over Mary Jane, and now Peter has to go and save her. Get the reward, the seizing the sword moment. This is the moment in the story where after the hero defeats the villain, he survives the death, he overcomes the great personal challenge that he was facing. The hero ultimately is reborn in a new state. They emerge from the battle as a stronger person, in most cases with a prize of sorts. The reward can be many different things. Either it's an object of great importance, or it's some kind of power, it's a secret, it's greater knowledge or insight. It could even be recognition from a loved one. If the story is a romance and the whole story is about someone trying to get someone to love them back, the reward is achieving that. Or maybe getting some insight about it. Maybe that isn't a good person for them. If it's a mystery, it might be the detective solving the mystery. We'll give some examples. So for example, in Lord of the Rings, the destruction of the ring in Mount Doom and the victory of the Fellowship against Sauron is their reward. In Harry Potter, Harry entering the room where the Philosopher's Stone is hidden, that is the reward, because that's why he was facing the main supreme ordeal, was to achieve that reward. So in your story, when you're setting up the plot and everything, you want to keep in mind, okay, like, what are all the different challenges, but what is the supreme challenge they're going to be facing? What is the big task? Not necessarily the villain that they're going to face at the end, which we'll see in a moment. That's not necessarily the case. It's just the big thing that's going to allow your character to do the biggest evolutionary change, and not only change but also to test them. And then what is the reward? What are they fighting for? In the Matrix, Neo blames himself for Morpheus' capture, so he re-enters the Matrix to save Morpheus. He realized that he allowed Morpheus to get captured, so he decides that he's going to go back in and save him. That's in its own sense his own reward. Even though it might not seem like a normal reward, it's him making that choice to go ahead and save. He's choosing to save Morpheus, despite what the Oracle told him. In Spider-Man saves Mary Jane and learns the Green Goblin's identity. He manages to save the girl, and then he learns his enemy's identity. But that's not over. We just got over the halfway point. We are not actually done with the story. We still have 3 more steps to go through. With the reward, Act 2 ends, and now we're at the beginning. We're in the crossroad between Act 2 and Act 3, with the road back. This stage in the hero's journey represents sort of a reverse to the call of action that they had at the very beginning. In the beginning, they had the call to action, so they had to cross the threshold from the ordinary world into this super world, this special world. But now they have to return back. They have to go return home with a reward. But this time, the anticipation of the danger is no longer there. Now there's a sense of vindication, or maybe absolution, or a peace, or something, or closure. It's a bit different. They are returning home. But generally speaking, when they return home, it doesn't necessarily mean the hero's journey is over. A lot of times, this is the moment when it ends. And if your story ends at this point, then you kind of shift everything along to kind of fit. This wouldn't really be the beginning of Act 3. You would kind of like fix that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's over at that point. Sometimes the hero may have to actually return back. Maybe one last push into... he needs like one more push to be pushed back into the ordinary world. There might be a point where for the hero to actually commit to this final stage, to return back to the final stage of their journey, they might have to actually choose between their personal objective and a higher cause. Maybe the thing that they've been fighting for, the goal that they've been fighting for, is in conflict with the betterment of the world, or the betterment of everything. And now they're going to have to choose. Do they go for their personal desires, or do they let that go for the betterment of, whatever objective they might have? So for the road back, for the Lord of the Rings, pretty straightforward. Frodo falls unconscious on the floor after extreme mental exhaustion, finally getting rid of the ring, and they're rescued by Gandalf and the Eagles. So basically, he did it. He's exhausted. And he gets rescued. They're leaving that location. They went to Mordor. Now they're leaving Mordor. In the Matrix, before Neo can leave the Matrix again, Agent Smith kills him. Neo returns back into the Matrix. He's trying to leave, but before he can go, he's actually killed in the process. And it's actually preventing him from heading back home. Like, his path back home ended because Agent Smith managed to kill him at that point. Harry Potter, he faces Professor Quirrell, who's been hosting Voldemort in his body. They found the Philosopher's Stone. Harry found the Philosopher's Stone. That was his goal. But now he has one final obstacle that's preventing him from returning back to Hogwarts, back with his reward. And that's Professor Quirrell, who's hosting Voldemort. In Spider-Man, at Norman's funeral, Harry Potter's best friend swears to avenge his father's death. Green Goblin is defeated. Mary Jane was saved. But now there's like, in the attempt to make things back to the way they were before, there's this new kind of obstacle that Peter has to deal with, where his best friend now swears revenge without Harry knowing that it's Peter who's the one who killed his father. Harry now has this vengeance plan against Spider-Man. Peter's gonna have to deal with that. So the return home is not always nice and isn't always carefree and safe, or without its own struggles. Next we have the 11th one is Resurrection. This is the climax in which the hero must have their final and most dangerous encounter with death. This is the final boss, the final enemy, the final whatever for the story. The final battle represents something that's far greater than the hero's own existence, with its outcome having a consequences far reaching that of the ordinary world or the lives that he left behind. So essentially, in the fight in the Supreme Ordeal, if the hero loses, it's usually with death or something, but this time they're fighting for something beyond themselves. Usually there is a bigger outcome that if they fail will occur. So they're kind of usually placing the weight upon their shoulder for everything. So if they fail, it's a much bigger deal. And it's supposed to be meant for us to kind of, share with the hero's hopes and their fears. We kind of grip and hope they succeed, and usually the hero succeeds. In Lord of the Ring, the resurrection is several weeks later. Frodo awakens from his unconscious state, just in time to witness Aragorn's marriage to Arwen, and his ascent to the throne of the realm. Simultaneously, all the members of the fellowships are knighted by Aragorn, with the exception of Gandalf. So he awakens just in time he literally wakes up just in time to experience that. It wasn't a big climatic battle in this case. But let's see, in Harry Potter, he wakes up in the hospital. Dumbledore explains that he's been protected by his mother love. Again, not another battle, not another enemy. Quirrell was actually the enemy in the book, but this is the case where he's woken up after the battle, and he's kind of gotten some new insight, this new power that he has, this love which will transcend the entirety of the books. And then we have over in the Matrix, Trinity tells Neo that she loves him, so he must be the one. Neo is revived and he kills the agent. He literally comes back from the dead. He's actually resurrected, and he defeats the big bad. And then we have in Spider-Man, Mary Jane confesses her love for Peter, but he rejects her to keep her from danger. This is a case where Peter his big enemy is him wanting to be with MJ. He must not be with her in order to keep her safe from all the crazy shit that him being Spider-Man brings to his life. And that's something he had to come to terms with. Final bit is the return with the elixir. This is the final stage of the hero's journey, in which they return home to their ordinary world changed. They've grown as a person, they learn new things, they face terrible dangers, and now they look forward to the start of a new life. Possibly. So essentially, this is kind of a loop. They've returned, and they are now changed for the better, for the worse. That depends on your story. With Lord of the Rings, Frodo returns to the Shire with more powerful relationships. Eventually, Frodo journeys to the Undying Lands to live peacefully for the rest of eternity. With Harry Potter, Harry returns back to 4 Private Drive for the summer. He's happy, however, because he belongs to Hogwarts and knows he'll return. Neo makes a call in the Matrix telling the machines that he will free humanity. That's him informing the machines that he will fight. That's his stance. He's no longer hiding away, he is fighting. Peter recalls Uncle Ben's words and embraces his role as Spider-Man. As you can see, those are the 12 steps, and yes, they're not as clear-cut in all the examples. Some examples work better than others, and that's the whole point. Now, you might be saying, I don't want to use this, I want my story to be free. Should I be able to break those rules? And yes, you should be able to break those rules. I encourage you, but here's the thing about being creative with writing. This is a very important lesson. In order to break the rules, you need to know what the rules are. So, study the 12 steps, the hero's journey. Learn about them. Figure out, because here's the thing. Break the rules, but don't break them for the sake of breaking them. Don't break them just because you want to be edgy and different. Break them if it fits your story. I gave you a bunch of examples, and I found some of them didn't really fit that well, the hero's journey thing. It stretched it a bit, but it fit that story. But for the most part, successful stories do follow the hero's journey in some capacity. So I implore you, I myself am using the hero's journey to at least, not as a checklist, but to kind of check if I don't know what I want to do next. Let me check the hero's journey. Let me see what stage am I in. Maybe that'll help me kind of flow the story better. Might as well give it a shot. Let me know in the comments below what do you guys think about the hero's journey. Do you enjoy using it yourself? Do you have any other type of outlining guides that you prefer to use? Yeah, let me just know in the comments below. Now for our recommended reading, I have here 45 Master Characters, Mythic Models for Creating Original Characters by Victoria Lynn Schmidt. This is essentially a really, really, really good book that talks about archetypes, talks about how to create characters, and how to give them goals, how to make them protagonists, antagonists, what other types of characters to surround them with, what other archetypes to surround them with. It's a really good book. I definitely recommend you guys check it out. If I find it on Amazon, I will put a link in the description below. And speaking of archetype, that's actually going to be tomorrow's lesson. We're going to be talking about character archetypes and how to use them in your story in order to create characters, and how to avoid creating stereotypical characters, because there's a difference between archetypical characters and stereotypes. So we're going to talk about how to avoid those in tomorrow's vlog. So I'm going to go and probably get some writing done since I didn't do anything yesterday. So thank you very much, you guys, for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.